going to do something that I have never done before. As the title says, making clotted cream and baking scones. Well, I've baked scones many times, different recipes. This is a recipe that I haven't used before, but I have never made clotted cream. And I presume this is how it's done. I found this recipe online. Just trying to find the name of the website here. Seems to be French, or part French and part English. Curious Cuisinière, Curious Cuisine. What we were just looking there was my oven is set at 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Relatively low oven temperature. I'll put a link to the recipe below the video. And they're making 1 cup of clotted cream from a pint of cream. Well, I've bought 2 pints of heavy cream, so I should end up with roughly 2 cups of clotted cream. Now this goes in that 180 degree oven for 12 hours. So I'm doing this overnight. It's 9 p.m. now. I'll take it out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and we'll see what it looks like at that time. Hopefully not burnt all to pieces. Well, it's had its 12 hours in the 180 degree oven, and it formed a skin on top, which is what the instructions said it would do. The instructions didn't mention the skin being a golden color, but at any rate, that's what it is. We'll see how this turns out in the end, I guess. Right now, it stays just at room temperature until it cools down to room temperature, which could probably take some time. It's at 180 degrees, so I suspect 2 or 3 hours. And then you cover it, and it gets refrigerated for at least 8 hours. Longer is even better, I guess. So I will cover it and refrigerate it, and I'll bring you back when it comes out of the refrigerator. Well, it's been cooling at room temperature now. It is at room temperature for about 3 hours, so I'm going to cover it and refrigerate it for 8 hours. It's taken on the consistency of a very delicate custard. And I guess it will congeal more in the refrigerator during the 8 hours, but I'll bring you back 8 hours from now anyway, and we see whether or not we've got clotted cream. It's had its 8 hours in the refrigerator and it is firmer. Now it says to take off the clotted part on the top, including the skin, because you can, when you mix it together, and if you need to add a little of the liquid that should be left behind there to thin it out any, the skin will melt and go into the rest of the clotted cream. So they say. Okay. Let's see what they mean. The liquid that's left behind is sort of a tan color. Well, I won't make you watch me scrape all of this off, but I'll bring you back and show you how much I get in the final product. Well, that's the yield. I didn't really measure it. I think that's probably about a 2-cup container. I got about 1.5 cups maybe. But it definitely tastes like clotted cream, and it's delicious. I don't think I have said anything all the way through this process as to what clotted cream is, other than you now know how it's made. There's probably people out there that have never had it or don't understand what it is at all. It originates in the United Kingdom, I think probably in Devon. Devonshire cream teas are well known anyway, but I've had cream teas in other parts of England as well. And it's to just tell you what it is. It's heavy cream, and it's the solids out of the heavy cream, and you've seen the process that I used anyway to make it. And you spread that on your scone and your favorite jam on top of it, and it is absolutely delicious. I know you can get it in some parts of Canada and probably some parts of the US as well, but where I live in New Brunswick, in the state of Maine across the border. I have never been able to find it in a supermarket anywhere. I think in areas where there were more English immigrants, it's probably more common, like probably in Ontario and British Columbia, places like that. You probably could get it quite easily, but it's definitely not a slimming item. Now we need to make the scones, so we can try this. Well, I think that's about all of the ingredients assembled anyway for the scones. It's 2 cups of all-purpose flour and 3 tablespoons of unsalted cold butter, and I've cubed that, and that's in there already. 2 tablespoons of sugar, white sugar. Things are so humid here, everything is sticking. 4 teaspoons of baking powder. I don't believe I've ever made this kind of a biscuit before with that much baking powder, and a half teaspoon of salt in that container. Just combine those. And butter back in. I have an egg yolk beaten with a tablespoon of milk. That's for a glaze before it goes in the oven. And 2/3 of a cup of milk that will be added shortly. Now you begin by hand, just rubbing in the cold butter into the flour and leavening agents and sugar and salt, all that good stuff. I don't know if I said or not, the butter is unsalted, so I have added the half teaspoon of salt. If I use butter with salt in it, I just eliminate the salt that the recipe calls for. You get still something fairly decent and close, I guess, to what was called for. But if you use unsalted butter, you know that you're at least doing what the recipe called for. I think that's got that pretty well rubbed in. You don't want large chunks, but some good sized flakes are okay. That's what helps it to rise along with the leavening agents. Now add the 2/3 of a cup of milk and just stir it together to make a wet dough. Bring you back in just a second when I get the board prepared to turn it out on. Out of the bowl and onto a floured surface. And you want something that says about 1 inch thick. You don't want to work it too much because you don't want it to get tough, and that's what will happen if you work this kind of a dough. You develop the gluten, which is good if you're doing bread, but not if you're doing scones, I guess. And they say to put it on a greased and floured tray. Well, I don't do that. Much less cleaning if you use parchment paper. And this is a 2-inch cutter. Those are not 1 inch thick. I think I've gone a little too thin with it again, but anyway, we'll see what happens, I guess. I'll bring you back when I have these cut and on the tray. I've just turned the oven on to 425 degrees because the instructions in this one says that they should rest for 15 minutes while your oven is preheating. I suspect they would be resting better in the refrigerator, usually if you chill something like this, but right now there's no room in my refrigerator. I'll put this glaze on. I'll bring you back and show you them when they come out of the oven. What I didn't say, I guess, is when they go in the oven at 425, it's for 12 to 15 minutes until they are a nice golden brown and have hopefully risen quite a bit anyway. Well, hot out of the oven. I do mean hot. Burn myself yet with that tray. Not too bad. They did rise quite well. I'll just put them over on a tray here to cool a bit. They're best though warm right out of the oven. It's one of my favorite memories of a scone in the United Kingdom, being on a little day trip in Northumbria with a company called the Mountain Goat Bus Tours, and part of the tour was to stop at a farm for afternoon tea. And as we went in the house, a lady just took the hot scones out of the oven. It was wonderful. Well, I'll see you in the dining room in just a moment. Well, they're still nice and warm. Anxious to try my homemade clotted cream here. I think if I were to do it again, I would use a lower oven temperature with my stove. I think my 180 degrees is a little hotter than it's really supposed to be. I think I might try 170, 160 or something like that. I don't think that it was, I mean, they were supposed to get that skin over the top. That's part of it. I just don't think it was supposed to be so golden brown in color. Most of it has disappeared, but I still see little flecks of it in the clotted cream. Let's give this a try. Very good. I'm using my homemade blackcurrant jam too, if I didn't already mention that. And a nice cup of tea. Those will hit the spot. They're going in the freezer immediately. Going to be given to some of my company when they arrive. They're in the air now, but won't get here for a couple of days. So I'm still busy preparing and cooking, but I think these will go over a treat. Finger licking good. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you've never had clotted cream, at least now you know how to make it. And if you've had clotted cream but haven't made your own, it really isn't that difficult a process. I was surprised. I didn't know. I never had any idea what was involved. If it was something that was a cultured product, or if it was, just the cream done this way. But it works out very well. And in a refrigerator, it should store for at least a couple of weeks. And I don't think I'll have any trouble getting rid of it in a couple of weeks. Well, thank you very much for watching.